welcome back to U-Stride. And I have with me today the Nikola. This is the 100 volt, 1845 watt hour Nikola electric unicycle from Gotway. Now, I had to do a video on this wheel real quick because I made a comparison initially when I did the first impression video with the MSX. And I figure, one of my friends, he owns it, so I figure, hey, let me ask him, to borrow it to do a quick review, initial impression. And he was kind enough to let me do that. So let's start with the positives. The positive is this wheel is fast. So remember when I said I wanted a wheel that's at least 60 miles an hour and I'll be happy? Well, this comes really close to that. There's not much leaning into the wheel to get it to go fast. It's just fast. 100 volt difference. The 100 volt makes a lot of difference between compared to the 84 volt. Okay, so the 84 volt, I'm not sure if I'm leaning more on the MSX because the wheel is bigger in terms of the tire, not the unit itself, but the tire. But the first impression you get with this wheel when you get on it, the 100 volt, let's not get it confused now. The 100 volt is this. You don't have to lean a lot in order to push it to the limit. It's amazing. I've been able to reach 37 miles an hour on my way to work, and I limited it to 38, so that it beeps in my head when I'm going close to 38. And there was no struggling. The things did not struggle at all. In fact, I didn't even know I hit 37 miles an hour until I pulled over to look at the app, So this thing is ridiculously fast, okay? It's fast, wicked fast. That's all I have to say. It's ridiculously fast. I can't stress that enough. And the best part about how fast it is there's not much leaning into the unit in order to get it to go. It's quoted 40 miles an hour. I've only been able to do 37. Anyway, moving on to the next positive. The pedal. The pedals are pretty wide. They're pretty long. Actually, in my opinion, they're the perfect size. These are the perfect size pedals, really. It doesn't take over the whole unit. It doesn't take over the design of the wheel. It doesn't envelop it. Doesn't make it look like it's over exaggerated. The angles are perfect. Like I said, I didn't feel any craziness on my MSX, but this feels perfect. It feels very natural. Another positive are these pads. These pads are very strong, extremely strong. I can't compare it to my MSX yet because I've only had it for, less than a month, maybe a month. But yeah, these pads are very, very strong and they come in handy. Now, the reason these pads are great is because one of the drawbacks to this wheel, in my opinion, is how thick it is and how tall it is. So you will feel that when you're about to go maneuver between cars, and that's what I've experienced. Maneuvering between cars is it's a challenge with this initially. Now it's more of a challenge for me because he added a seat, and that seat is a bit thick for my liking, but it's on the plus side, it's very, very comfortable. So back to the pads. The pads are very, very comfortable, and it comes in handy when you're maneuvering through traffic, for example. And the fact that the wheel is a little bit taller and wider, for when you're trying to make these sharp turns, the pads come in handy. Okay, so like every other Gotway device, there's a USB charger, there's a light, there's a power switch for turning the modes of the wheel. So you push it once, and it changes the light settings, the ring lights. You push it again, it changes into a different color. So not much different than any other Gotway. It's just the lights are a little different. And it's good for visibility at night. I personally don't like riding with lights, but these lights, they're pretty good. They don't look tacky. And I usually ride with the red settings because it gives it, a cool look. I don't really like the other lights, but so now to the negative side. Now, one thing I was very blown away by is the range. It's an 1845 watt-hour battery, 100 volt, 16 inch by 3 inch diameter wheel, and I was actually very shocked how the range compared to my MSX. For example, my MSX is 19 inch, and it's a 1600 watt hour battery, exactly 1554 to be honest. But either way, this doesn't really, how do you say, the MSX is actually very comparable to this particular wheel, because being a smaller battery, if you think about it, because the distance from my house to work is about 4 miles, and I travel about, I don't know, 34, 35 on average miles per hour to the job. It takes me 13 minutes to get there and back. 13 minutes to go, 13 minutes to come back. And I took the same path I normally do with my MSX with this wheel, and it's pretty much the same. It's this, when I get to work, it's about, I leave at 100% battery, and I get there with 96, 95% battery left. Same thing with this one. On the way back, because I don't ever carry my charger since I live so close, but on the way back, it's the same. It's my battery, I don't know, I end up with like, let's see, so that would be a total of 8 miles. So when I come back home with my MSX, I have, let me see, 86% battery left. And this, I had about the same, 85, 86% battery left. Don't get me wrong, there were a couple times where I did do 36, 37 miles per hour on this one, but on average, the battery is pretty much the same. So there's a trade-off, really. You have the power, you have supposed range, but really what you have is a heavier battery. You have a heavier unit. This is about 50 to 60 pounds, right? They say 50 to 60 because the 84 volt is probably around 50. This is the 100 volts, so it's definitely around the 60 range. Whereas my MSX is about 56 pounds for a 1600 watt hour battery. So that's the main difference. But like I said, this is not an easy wheel to carry around. All right, so if you're looking for speed, this is definitely one of the wheels I recommend. But there are definite drawbacks to a wheel of this size. This is a much bigger wheel than the MSX, a much bigger wheel. Now, in terms of size, yes. In terms of weight, yes. But if you compare it to the 100 volt MSX, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's much heavier than the MSX. I'll have to look that up. You can look it up too. But in terms of form factor, the 100 volt MSX is the same as the 84 volt MSX, right? So there's a difference in weight because of the 1845 watt hour battery. But when it comes to the wheel itself, this is a much bigger wheel, okay? You will feel it, you will see it. But what gets me is how it operates when you get on it. It doesn't feel like a big wheel because of that 100 volt. And this is probably the primary reason why I feel the range is pretty much the same as the 1600 watt hour battery MSX. The difference between these two wheels in terms of speed is the 100 volt. That is the main difference, okay? So if you're deciding between the MSX and the Nikola, you have to ask yourself, what am I going to use this wheel for? Am I going to use it to travel to work and back? Is that it? Am I going to go on a lot of group rides? Am I going to go on a long trip? Or long trips in general? Am I planning on speeding in traffic? I mean, you have to decide what you're going to do with this wheel, because they're very different in terms of form factor. But in terms of user experience, in terms of satisfaction, in terms of like, wow, I really got what I wanted for my money, like I really got my money's worth, it's really a toss-up. It really is a toss-up. But when it comes to, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but when it comes to the speed factor, then you're going to have to decide between the form factor of this wheel compared to the form factor of the 100 volt MSX, right? So 200 volt wheels when making that decision, because this is a big wheel. It's just big, okay? I don't know how else to put it. It's big. It's big like this, and it's big like this, and it's big like this. So it's wide, it's tall, it's heavy. But what I do like about it, and I didn't mention this earlier, what I really like about this wheel, it makes up for its negatives by having some amazing positives. So one positive it has is the amazing pickup because of the 100 volt. The second is the 16-inch tire with the 3-inch diameter. This thing eats up potholes. Like, Boston is full of potholes, man. and this thing just eats it up. Like there are several times where I'm riding really, really fast, and I didn't see the pothole, and this thing just goes right through it, like, you know, like nice and smooth. You don't really feel a jerk, that rough feedback that you get from a smaller wheel when you hit a bump, for example, or you hit a pothole, right? This thing is wide. It's pretty wide, and it just eats up these bumps, and it gives you that comfort and that sense of security you need for such a fast wheel. So it's very interesting, you know, that Gotway chose to go with a 16-inch tire with a 3-inch diameter. It makes perfect sense for cities with horrible roads. Perfect sense. So that's another positive. Another positive is the lift sensor. So there's a nice lift sensor when you lift the wheel, when you carry the wheel by the handle, it turns off the wheel. MSX doesn't have that. Yeah, MSX does not have that, and that's another positive for this wheel. What's another positive I can think of? The light is ridiculously bright. It's bright, and of course, brighter is better, right? Okay, it's very, very bright. It's noticeable. Okay, on my Tesla, for example, I didn't really see the light that much. On the MSX, it's a lot brighter than the Tesla, but this takes the cake. This is pretty bright, and you can actually see where you're going. You can actually rely on these lights, which is very cool. I still wouldn't rely on it 100%, but if you know that your roads are not that bad, this light is perfect. And especially when you go off-roading, this is, at night, this is perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Another positive is, the trolley handle. The trolley handle is better than the MSX. That's another positive. The trolley handle is better than the MSX. It comes up, okay? This trolley handle comes up. Now, our friend, he added a seat to it, and the seat is actually very, very comfortable. Like, it's ridiculously comfortable. I personally don't like the way he placed it on there because it has a little forward, from the looks of it, it looks tilted back a little, but when you sit on it, you feel like you're sitting forward. So I'm a little hesitant to push it as much as I'd like to when riding. But kudos to him. This seat is very comfortable. It makes up for all the drawbacks of what I feel a seat should have, right? So this thing is very, very comfortable. And what's cool about it is there are little shock absorbers under it. So there are little springs under there. So the combination of how big or wide the tire is, along with this suspension under the seat, makes it an enjoyable experience. And I can see why he loves this wheel. Now, what's funny is he doesn't really ride his wheel a lot, but what else about this wheel? That's pretty much it. Everything else is the same. Okay, you connect it to the wall, you plug it in. He has a fast charger, and the fast charger is pretty cool. I'll show it in the video. But basically, he had it made. It's 2 charges in one. And if you want a slow charge, use one, plug in one. If you want a fast charge, plug in both. And that charges it faster for you. But mostly, I use the slow charger because when I get home, I just plug it in and let it charge up for the night because you don't really have to charge these wheels a lot. But the cold weather does make a huge difference, just so you know. Not just on the wheel, but it also makes a huge difference on your leg muscles. So one thing you'll notice that I will demonstrate is while I'm riding sometimes and I go to hold the brakes really sharply at high speeds, the wheel wobbles back and forth. And that has to do with, number one, my leg muscles, because it's cold. Number two, the type of shoes you're wearing. Number three, if your muscles are not conditioned, you're gonna get wobbles. And number four, the size of the wheel. If you're not used to such a big wheel, you're gonna get wobbles when you're trying to slow the wheel down at a high rate of speed, okay? That's just going to happen. And the way I counter that is by holding the brakes, but bending my knees as low as possible. Like, the lower you go, the better. Because that means you're lowering the center of balance of the entire wheel. So when you're on the wheel, you add to the center of balance of that wheel. So the wheel is very balanced as it is, but when you get on it, you increase the center of balance, right? Because you're top heavy. So in order to get rid of these wobbles, you lower yourself, therefore lowering the center of balance of the wheel and leaning back, obviously. So yeah, that's what I've had to do, and it's worked. But between this wheel and the MSX, it's really a toss-up. It's up to you, but I wouldn't compare the 84 volt MSX to the 100 volt Nikola. Just no comparison, okay? Let's not compare it. They're just two different wheels, okay? Two different categories. It's like trying to compare a Toyota Supra with a Ferrari. The Toyota Supra is great if you add on some things to it, right? If you add on another turbo, if you make the turbo much crazier, that's when it becomes comparable to the Ferrari. But this is a Ferrari, the MSX is a Supra, and they're no comparison. Don't compare them, okay? I'm just telling you right now, if you want to compare an MSX to Nikola, get the 100 volt MSX, not the 84 volt in terms of speed. But if you want a really good wheel that's very fast and has great distance and has a great form factor, and you can carry it around without worrying about the size and hold brakes without wobbles, the MSX 84 volt is definitely the way to go. It's all around perfect for that individual who wants to get a wheel of that caliber. This one is just on another level. Let's just be honest. I'm going to be honest. This wheel is just on a different level. It's just wicked fast, but I don't like the drawbacks. It's fat, it's tall, and it's not so easy to carry around. One of my friends told me, "Why do you need to carry the wheel around? I mean, just ride it wherever you need to go." Well, the truth of the matter is, sometimes you have to carry the wheel. That's just how it is. Like, sometimes you have to carry the wheel. Not everybody lives in a house with elevators. Not everybody lives in or works in a place where, you know, it's elevator friendly. You know, especially when you first walk into the door, there might be some steps you have. I mean, come on, like. But at the end of the day, I gave the MSX a 9 out of 10, right, in my initial impression. I'm giving this, in terms of like the overall impression, I would have to also give it a 9 out of 10. There are a few drawbacks, like I mentioned, the width of the wheel, the height, but you're going to have to compromise if you want a faster wheel, okay? A faster wheel means more batteries, okay? A faster wheel means higher voltage. A faster wheel means the form factor might not be what you like, but you are getting a faster wheel. So between the MSX 84 volt and the 100 volt Nikola, again, I don't want to compare them. I just don't want to compare them. I don't think they're good comparison. I think you would have to compare the 100 volt MSX to the 100 volt Nikola. Yeah, but if you're someone who wants to compare, then I would say, if you want speed, go for the Nikola 100 volt or the 100 volt MSX. If you want a wheel that's portable and able to carry around and not worry about the form factor, go with the 100 volt MSX. Not this. It's awkward. It's very awkward. But like I said, in the end, they're both amazing wheels and they're both thumbs up, man. Like, it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up. Choose whichever wheel you want, but choose 100 volt versus 100 volt, not 84 volt. You'll be disappointed. You'll be massively disappointed. I'm not disappointed because that's exactly the wheel I wanted. I wanted 84 volt, 1600 watt hour, being able to push it as fast as I could and not lose too much range. I can't push this as fast as I could and not lose range. I'm gonna lose range because it's 100 volt. But Gotway did a great job compromising with the wheel size and adding a 16-inch, 3-inch diameter wheel. That was a really good decision by Gotway, and you will feel it immediately. You'll feel it immediately. But once you turn that wheel off and you plan on carrying it around, that's when you go, holy moly, that thing is heavy. So I still stick by my decision to get the 84 volt, 1600 watt hour MSX. And if I do an upgrade, it's gonna be the 100 volt MSX for sure, because I like the form factor of the MSX. But if someone, gave me a Nikola, I wouldn't give it back. It's a great wheel. It's an awesome wheel. So, will I get a Nikola in the future? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I recommend it. I absolutely recommend the Nikola. Just keep in mind, like I said, just keep in mind, this is not a small wheel. It's not a thin wheel. It's not a short wheel. It's tall, it's wide, and it's heavy. And these are all bad combinations for beginning riders, okay? You're gonna crash it. Let's just be honest. But it's a fantastic wheel. It's a fantastic, fantastic wheel in terms of performance. 10 out of 10 for performance. 10 out of 10 for performance. Good job, Gotway. Good job. All the positives of this wheel outweighs any negatives, okay? So I don't know what else to say. Thank you guys for tuning in. This was the first impression of the Nikola 100 volt. I hope that helped. Take care. Happy riding. That was a little too fast. So guys, my buddy is here. We just switched back the MSX from his awesome Nikola 100 volt 1845 watt-hour battery. Now, the thing is, his wheel is amazing. He doesn't like to be on camera, so that's why I'm like recording like this. But is it okay with that? I mean, you put that on.
Yeah, I'm fine.
So you good now?
It's not winter gear.
All right, cool. So he's good. So this is an awesome rider here. He's brand new, but he's like amazing, man. He's amazing. He got on his wheel in no time. But I just want you to give me an honest opinion. Be honest. Don't be nice to me.
Yeah.
You were honest with me in the text. Just be honest. Tell me what you feel about, my wheel, the Gotway MSX 1600 watt-hour 84 volt.
I think it's generally a great all-around wheel, but however, in terms of the speed and agility, I think that MSX has definitely one of the best agilities out there. In Monster and Nikola, obviously these wheels are heavier, so they do a lot more. They take a lot more effort to turn. Where when you slurp into traffic, if you do that, MSX is definitely a better option for you. But in terms of comfortability, like this thing is a fucking moving couch, right? So like on the MSX, it's really hard to go over bumps in like 40 miles an hour, considering the speed. If it goes that fast, going through those potholes are pretty nightmarish. It requires a lot of experience to have this beast under your control. So, in generally, it takes a longer time to get used to get paced up with the wheel and really just get to it and explore all its potential. Compared to a Nikola, you can literally it's a moving couch. You're never really concerned about potholes in the road. You just go over them, and then you literally see something, you roll over them. It's a tank. So.
Did you feel like any resistance when you were trying to go fast like you normally would on your Nikola?
In terms of, of course, the 84 volt versus the 100 volt, there's a huge difference. I topped out the MSX today. I think for the lunch run, I did around 32 miles an hour, and that's as much as I would push it. Because, obviously, I don't know the wheel so well, because I've ridden like for 2 days. So for mine, I do 38, 39, push it to its max, race cars with it. Things I do with it for 100 volts. So for the time being, but comes to the advantage of it being a big wheel, it's very mobile. It's very different riding style than say in the Nikola where you just comfort ride.
Yeah.
You go there, you're
so if someone's on the fence right now and they have the money, what would you tell them?
I would still stick with Nikola. Just because of the comfortability and the thing, and it's just the lighting. Look at this stuff.
Yeah.
Look at this guy. Right?
The design is nice, right? Oh, it's really nice design.
It's the design of it. I like the handle. Right. Regarding the design, I think that the MSX, the handle part and the seat could be definitely modified, and to some extent to improve it. In some cases, maybe adding a bike seat on top or make it removable so you can still access the handle without removing the seat itself. And it comes to the term that also the seat itself, the factory seat, actually falls off from time to time. So you have to be very cautious on that, you know, removing it from handle. Or compared to Nikola, you freaking just and there you go. This thing never falls off. But this is a modified, you know, it's a modified setting, but it's something similar that you can do to Nikola to make it as comfortable as any wheels out there. Like,
Awesome, bro.
So yeah, this is my honest opinion.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Thank you for letting me borrow your wheel, bro.
Of course, anything.
Awesome.